Hey everyone, today I'm joined by Dan Englander. Dan is the founder of Sales Schema and a consultant helping agencies grow through outbound systems. He's the author of Relationship Sales at Scale and has helped over 100 agencies go beyond referrals using proactive outreach and trust based selling. I wanted to have Dan on because too many agency owners rely on passive referrals, and Dan shows how to build a system that actively fills the pipeline. In this episode, we discuss how to build a referral engine that actually scales, why most outbound fails and how to fix it, how to find trust shortcuts in your outreach, and more. No one was asking for another community, but I've made one anyway. So what's different? The dynamic agency community is designed around access rather than content. Access to peers who've done it before. Access to experts who've designed solutions. Access to resources that have been battle tested. And right now, the price for founding members is only $97 a year. Join today so your agency has immediate access to everything you need to grow. You can join at dynamicagency.community. And now, Dan Englander. It's easier than ever to start an agency, but it's only getting harder to stand out and keep it alive. Join me as we explore the strategies agencies are using today to secure a better tomorrow. This is Agency Forward. What is the biggest mistake that agencies make with outreach?
Yeah, really great question. I mean, I think a lot of it is being self-centered, right? And focusing on here are our wins, here's all the great things we've done, as opposed to the prospect and what they're up against and these sorts of things. And I think that there's this kind of like blinders on mentality because a lot of the times the agency knows that they might be creating really strong campaigns for their clients that like are focused entirely on their client's customer, but they don't see the forest from the trees for themselves, right? Which is a common thing. So that's probably the biggest mistake. And I think the thing that makes that harder, it's not that the agency is always narcissistic or can't ever turn that off. I think a lot of the times there is humility. But the thing that stops that is real lack of clarity about who their ideal client is, right? Because the agency might be spread between too many different verticals. What I find is even if there is specialization, like even if you do have one vertical that you focused on for years, it's a continuous effort to understand that vertical and understand like really like sharpening what are they up against, what's going on right now, how have things changed. Like that's already enough with just one, much less like five for which you've done 10 different things. So those are a few things that come to mind for mistakes.
Yeah. I'm wondering too with the kind of self-serving side of this. Most marketing agencies are great at marketing or can't say that. A lot of marketing agencies are great at marketing for their clients. But yeah, when it comes to marketing for yourselves, it's really hard. I wonder though, how much is it this like, we have this desire to just like, look, I can help you. Here's exactly how I can help you. Like, look at it. And it's just like, what is it that gets us doing that?
It's a great question. And I've done that too. Like we've had just as many messed up outbound campaigns as we've had good ones. And like whenever I've gone wrong, and usually when it fails, it's like, because I start going crazy with here's all the great stuff we can do here. Here's how awesome we are. And like, I'm pretty sure we can help here. Mm-hmm. The issue is, I think the reason, I'm not sure why we do that. There's probably like a lot of genetic and evolutionary reasons, but I think all I can say is like the dynamic that has changed that in my estimation is this thing called the trust recession, right? Which I talk about. I didn't invent that word. A lot of people are talking about it, but it's the idea that like we went from a situation, and I might get too far into history and other stuff, where the scarce resource was information. Like you hear about the information age, right? That was like whatever the end of the 20th century, let's say, and passed it into the 2000s and so on, where you had things like the parity of information between buyers and sellers kind of reached this equilibrium. So if like you're a buyer going to buy a car, you have the blue books and you know about it, and same thing applies to B2B. So now we're sort of past that age, and there's so much information about everything that's no longer the scarce resource. It's really trust, right? It's this idea that like, okay, there's a lot of agencies out there. You say you can do these things. why, not even why should I buy from you, but why should I talk to you right now? Why should I risk having my time wasted, or maybe risk getting like pushed into something that I later regret, whatever that is. So if you're thinking about it from the standpoint of trust being the scarce resource, that really should affect the copy you write and the outreach that you put out there, right? So I'll stop blabbering for a second, but that's a few things that come to mind.
No, that's great. I sent you a question meant for a psychologist, and you took a great direction with it. So I agree. The something that like inbound marketing was really big on pushing was like educating your audience. But the thing now is like education is there. It's everywhere, right? It's like freely. You can go to ChatGPT, ask any question. You're going to find all the resources you need. And so really it comes down to who builds trust the fastest. And so exactly what you're saying is, I'm seeing it in my day-to-day work with agencies. And so
Right. And I think that like this might be a clumsy metaphor, but it's almost like AI is this giant juicer that's like squeezing the last drops of juice out of like the value of information alone. Right. And then it's like you're not going to outcompete that. So yeah. So I mean, a lot of like what we're helping our clients with is really figuring out like what's inherently scarce and then leveraging that systematically. So a lot of the times that's looking at things like commonalities, it's looking at referrals, but doing it in a way that is proactive and systematic. So does each individual campaign scale? No, but the system overall does and is repeatable and so on. Yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to outreach, where I think there is a bigger trust gap that needs to be crossed in order for anyone to be able to reach out to anyone and have them actually believe you're there to help them, not just, sell them something off the bat. How are you helping your clients with actually bridging that gap?
It's a really good question. So I'll definitely get into that. To do a quick sidebar on this kind of like inbound versus outbound kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that the lines are getting pretty blurry between those things. If you're talking about like, hey, I'm getting on Instagram or I'm getting on a LinkedIn, I'm having my attention hijacked for 15 minutes, and then there's this lead magnet that I barely remember signing up for, and now I'm on a list. I don't know that that's a world away from a salesperson or an owner that has built a very deliberately crafted list and sent somebody either content or like a request for a call or something with personalized kind of commonality driven outreach. And then you have a lot of situations where you have people that have gotten on your list, but you're proactively making them an offer to like get on a call or attend a webinar or something like this. So I'm a big believer that all marketing is interruption marketing. I love Seth Godin. I love him to death. I don't agree with this permission marketing thing because permission involves always interrupting somebody. It would be great if we had products that were so dynamic and amazing that all of our business only came through organic referrals, but we live in the real world, right? And we're not all MIT tech billionaires. So this is so anyway, I wanted to say that like I think a lot of the times people draw these lines between inbound and outbound. I think that we're all playing the same game at this point, more or less. But to answer your question about like tactically how we're thinking about it. So first, the way that most people are thinking about this is taking the lessons from like tech companies, from software companies that have said, hey, here's the way to do outbound. You have this infinite kind of cold model. Everything's super automated. Automation is great. We do a lot of it, but it's kind of like scaling to the moon, using increasingly like kind of AI based personalization. I think the issue with that is we all kind of see it coming from a mile away, and our BS walls are getting higher as AI becomes more ubiquitous. So what we're looking to do with outbound is really look at like, where does the low hanging fruit live already? And how can we pick that for as long as possible and then keep it kind of expanding the low hanging fruit basically. So what that means in the first 90 days with clients, for most clients we were implementing a program we call the referral engine. So what that means is like looking at connections, figuring out who you would already ask for a referral, mapping who they know into accounts that you want to reach, and then going from a situation where you're like, hey, do you know anyone, to, hey, I saw you might know these specific people. Would you feel comfortable making intros? and then sending templates to make the intros as easy as possible. So it's not the most typical traditional outbound play, but it is outbound.
Yeah.
And it is leveraged. So that's the most common thing. And then from there, when we're getting into more like colder style leveraged campaigns, the sort of stuff that is fully automated, we are going cold sometimes, but as much as possible, we're using commonality. So it's like, okay, you want to reach CMOs at fintech companies between X and Y size. We could just go after all of them all at once, or we could find the ones that are in Portland, Maine. Hey, it looks like there's like 50 people you'd want to talk to in Portland, Maine. Maybe not Portland, but like a different, let's say you're going to a trade show in Atlanta in 3 months. Like there's 100 people there. Let's start with them, right? Because they're going to be more likely to talk to you, and almost nobody's sending them that message. That's like, we work with companies just like yours. You can see our website that says it. I'm going to be in Atlanta for this conference. Like, let's start there. And then if you keep doing, and then once you kind of start thinking in this way, there's dozens, hundreds of ways to implement these campaigns over and over again. So that's the kind of way we're thinking about it.
Gotcha. So like you brought up being able to target like an event that's coming up and being able to say, hey, like we have this, we're all going there. Like what other types of, I guess, commonalities are you able to find so that you can do this without needing to travel, without needing, I guess to leverage different events and things like that?
Yeah, really good question. So you don't necessarily have to be getting on planes all the time to make this work. The whole point is that you're shortcutting the trust gap. Like you're getting into like a hot air balloon and hopping over it as opposed to like climbing, through a canyon. Sorry, my metaphors don't always hit, but anyway,
I'm here for it. So we're good.
Yeah. So like even just knowing about a key industry event and thinking about going or saying you might go or saying like I'm going to be there or whatever can be enough is already like a cut above what is in 99% of people's inboxes, right? Because everybody's just trying to regurgitate publicly available information versus like, hey, we're in the cybersecurity space. Are you going to be at this big cybersecurity event? Hopefully we can chat then. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be at it, or you might say like, I'm thinking of going. There's a lot of different ways to do this. And that's just one example, but geographies alone can get us really far by like finding that balance between between commonalities and scale, basically. Another one that we've done in the past, which is definitely a smaller scale campaign, but just to give an example, is like a relevant company campaign. So like agencies, so much of the time it's like we get business because we have friends that are CMOs. They like bounce around, they take us with them. And then like the opposite end of the sword happens as well. And you lose these clients. That can play out really well if you actually think of that dynamic deliberately with like, okay, who can we find that used to work for one of our biggest clients or used to work for a company I used to work for or used to work for a partner of ours? And then if you're cross-referencing that into the accounts that you want to reach, now you might have a campaign of like 50 people that would take the call with you because it's like you're in their world. So a lot of this trust building is like really kind of like giving people this feeling that like, okay, this person's in my tribe. I'm probably going to encounter them in the future. And we probably know a lot of the same people, and not manufacturing that, but really like making it happen in a way that's leveraged, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So interestingly, I actually got an email this morning from a SaaS tool I'm subscribed to that just said, hey, our CEO is going to be in, in New York on these dates. If you're in New York or around there and you want to meet up for coffee, just reply, we'll set it up. And I'm not going to be in New York anywhere near that. But now that you're bringing this up, it's like I'm rethinking about that email and being like, man, if I was in New York though, there's a good chance I'd probably take that meeting just because of like the serendipity of like that happening. It's like, oh, this is interesting. Like, let's go.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because like when we go through our copy training, a big concept is timeliness, right? And we hear timeliness, it's sort of like we think of fake urgency and like exploding offers and all this stuff. But really, timeliness can be very subtle. And I think that in B2B, like subtlety is usually what we're doing. It's not this loud screaming siren and like, hey, I'm going to be in the city is an example of that. I think another reason that the example you brought up is good is that it's very honest. Like, although like we're making a message that feels one-to-one, even though we're sending it to a lot of people, it's directionally honest, right? We're not lying. We're not doing any tactics. The negative version or the evil version of the message you described is one that I see a lot, which is like, I'm trying to describe it the right way, but it's like the message will say, hey, like I was just in conversation with our CEO over lunch and your name came up and like here's the thread. And it's like why would that happen? In what
Yeah.
universe would you be talking about me over lunch with your CEO? It's like these little, but everyone just sees it coming. And then,
Mhm.
so it's better just to be honest because it's a lot less energy in the long run, aside from the
Right.
ethical stuff. Yeah.
The I get those all the time for podcasting,
Yeah.
where it's just "Hey, I loved your show. Like, I think this person would be awesome to be on it." And I archive them immediately, but I
Yeah.
recently there was someone who I've been seeing her on LinkedIn, good content. I'm like, "Oh, I should once I have some spots, I should invite her on." But then a PR agency reached out using that same type of messaging on her behalf. And I'm like, don't want to like, I'm still probably going to invite her on directly, but I'm
Right.
not going through that PR agency because it's just such a disingenuine like way to go about it. And I don't
Yeah, and what I
think they
find is
really,
like we get hit up by probably like I don't know 30 of those a week or
yeah.
something, and there's like I forget the name. I wish I could rep them better, but there's like one that does it really well, and it's obviously a form letter, and maybe they personalize like the name of our show, but they don't say anything like "love the episode with this." It's
Mhm.
just here's who it is. There's a one sheeter with like their name, face, background,
Yep.
and the quality of the guests are good, and it's like that's good enough,
Right. Well, and
So
they're not breaking any trust,
right.
right? Like,
It's nice to have that, even if we don't pick everybody. It's nice to have that in the inbox, right? So
right.
this is kind of a sidebar, but a lot of the times people will say this or that is dead, like email is dead. It's like no, email's not dead. It's still where we go to make plans and do business. Like that was one example. Hey, I still want this in my inbox.
Mhm.
It's just just doing it better and
Right. I want
staying
you
ahead
to
of the
do
curve.
better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So that was one of the things I wanted to get into. Like, what is like what's working and what's dead in 2025. Um, but I guess to what you're saying, it's like nothing is fully dead. It's just people are not using them with the best strategies and tactics to actually make it work.
Yeah, and I'm always like hesitant. I think whenever you hear XYZ is dead, it's like you're looking at clickbait,
Yeah. Well, their solution is usually the alternative. So it's like, yeah, this
Right.
is dead. You should come check this out.
Yeah, exactly. So you always have to be skeptical there. But no, I mean like email's not dead. It's been going strong since the 70s. It's still where we go to make plans and do business.
Mhm.
I think the main thing that's changed is there's a higher degree of barrier to entry for it, right? And that's because of the technology. It's because of what goes into setting up the right infrastructure for deliverability. And with large language models, internet service providers like Google and Microsoft are making it harder for the messages to get through. So there's kind of this kind of like issue where the spammers are just going to keep adjusting to that and they're still going to get their messages through because that's all they do. They can just keep playing the cat and mouse game. But for your average like white hat person, like an agency that wants to contact their few thousand prospects tastefully, there's just more that has to be done. Is it worth it? I think it still is worth it because everything's hard. Like building anything that's repeatable and that you can keep doing is hard. If you want to do ads, well, you talk to most ad experts, they'll tell you that costs per click have gone up and that's gotten harder. And that, in general, getting attention is harder than it was in the past, right? So
Yep.
it's just kind of what game you want to play. And I think for B2B, email still makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, there's a mindset shift. I think that like in our current times where everybody wants things very fast, it's like to look at marketing and say, "Oh, we just need whatever's going to get us leads in the door, right? Fill the pipeline."
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's going to take time. Like no matter what you're doing, there is going like effort that has to go in order to create this system so
Yeah.
that it works.
Yeah, exactly. And I might have lost your question a little bit because I think you asked about tactics and kind of like what's worked and what hasn't worked. So I think that there's stuff that works with transactional products and big scaled markets that doesn't work as well with like complex services, i.e.
Yeah.
agency services. And I think this is one of the biggest voids we're looking to fill in the market is that I don't know what percent, like a huge percentage of sales tactical advice is based on like the software industry and really what's worked for them. You can go all the way back to like this, the predictable revenue model, like the Aaron Ross stuff that now has been, challenged, I think, a lot, which was like the idea of, hey, I'm going to go hire this BDR. They're going to go pound the pavement, dial for dollars, hit up people over email, give me some meetings, and then we'll have an account executive close them. I think that's tough because in a consultative sales, so much of getting on the phone is about like the information, the learning you're going to get, the relationship you're going to build, as opposed to like a product driven sale, which is so much about, what the product's doing. And also like the downside risk is so small to a lot of these software products versus like an agency thing that is going to affect your career, could get you fired if you hire the wrong agency and so on. So a lot of it comes down to, getting away from like the massive amount of scale and the cold stuff, the fake AI based personalization. And again, getting back to some of the stuff I talked to earlier, like the commonalities, the trust, referral based stuff, and so on. The stuff that's not going to go out of style anytime soon, no matter how the technology changes. Yeah.
Right. So as you're looking to like help a client fill in their pipeline, you're going to start outreach. Is there a specific area that you focus on first?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I think a lot of the stuff, like everybody wants to get to like the slick tactics and the software and stuff, and that we get there soon enough. But there's more foundational things that we have to make sure are there before we can even work with people. And I think the first one, like before we even sign on, is just like, what do they want to accomplish? Like people say they want to grow. Like, what's behind that? Are you looking to sell this in a few years? Are you looking to scale and open up more offices? Why? Because like all this stuff is going to take time, energy, effort, et cetera. So like really, that's the kind of start with why thing. Then it's who's actually going to be running this and who's going to be doing it. Recently we've really adapted like the RACI framework, which RACI, so responsible, accountable. People know that, consulted, informed. I think a big issue is people putting way too many cooks in the kitchen, or worse, having this kind of sales as a hobby. We'll have this partner deal with this other partner deal with that. We'll do it when we have time. What we want to figure out is like, what happens not when you have an empty pipeline? Like we know what happens then. You freak out and you want more leads. What happens when you win the next 3 clients, right? And you need to onboard them. Are you going to be able to keep prospecting and keep this machine running? And for a lot of agencies, the answer is no, right? And that's where they screw up. And it's the 30, 90 days after that happens that we run into trouble. So a lot of it is like time blocking, figuring out who's doing what, getting motivation. From there, the next building block is clarity. Like really, like who are we going after? Like what, and thinking about it from the prospect standpoint. How do they self-identify? Because that's how we're going to build campaigns. So the agency may provide the exact same service to banks and fintech, or between retailers and beverage companies, but that's the problems that those individual prospects have and the idiosyncrasies between those ideal client profiles are going to be completely different, right? Like a fintech growth stage CMO has culturally different, has a million different bag of problems compared to like an institutional bank CMO, right? So that's going to inform how we build campaigns, and we need to iron out who those groups are going to be first. And ideally, niching isn't the only way, but for most of our clients, it's about going from a grab bag of these ICPs towards like one over time. And then once those things are there, then we're building company lists, we're building referral strategy, which I can get into if we have time, and building these scaled outreach campaigns through commonalities and so on, and getting them running in the background. Yeah.
So I guess I'd love to dive into figuring out the commonalities more. Like just what are, your ICP, right? Generally who you're targeting. What are you looking for in order to find those kind of levers that you can pull in order to show someone like, hey, we're similar?
Yeah. I mean, the fact is, like, it doesn't always have to be the most amazing thing in the world if you can sort of stack them up. Like, it's sort of like the sum is more than its parts kind of dynamic. So if you are if you're getting towards being specialized or niched, and and like a lot of this is playing out in the copy, and the sort of pain points or dynamics that you're identifying. So for example, like I have a campaign going right now to owners and agency leaders in the New York area. Is it the most compelling commonality in the world that we're in New York? No, there's like tons of agency people here. But if I can combine that with, hey, like we help agencies get beyond reactive referrals and build these repeatable systems. Also, like I saw, we're both in New York. I'm in Forest Hills. Now that's a message that's harder to ignore, and that's like literally the message we've made millions on over the years, kind of thing.
Right.
If you can keep doing that, a version of that, even just geos can get us really far. If you're combining that with stuff that's very meaningful to the vertical, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Others, like I've talked about, events can go really well. A lot of the times, these are things that the agency's doing anyway. They're just not building campaigns around them. So more and more, like what we're looking to help agencies do is not like invent something that's completely new that they've never done before. It's really just kind of adding fuel to like what's already there. So like if you're, especially like if you're already going to events, you should be setting up meetings, before, during, and after it. Like the event's really just kind of this like hub and this like reason to talk more than anything else. I think I talked about like, previous clients or past clients and that kind of thing. And then, a huge part of this, like really this can keep the agency busy for a year or more. And then continuously from there is the referral engine. I think that's probably the shortest path to revenue. Is like, it does take more like deliberate time looking at who knows who and then getting specific referrals. So those are like a few things that come to mind. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's dive into the referral engine.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's a
cool. So just to frame it out a little bit, most agencies get all their business from referrals. They know referrals are good. The issue is they're reactive. Most agencies are just waiting for them to happen. The ones that are a little bit better but not good enough will have a situation like they meet somebody at a conference or networking or a happy client, and then they'll go and say, hey, do you know anyone who fits this criteria? Sometimes it'll work. Usually it doesn't. And the reason it doesn't isn't always because people don't want to help us. It's because there's a lot of homework we're giving somebody. If I say, hey, Chris, I want to meet, for you, it's different because you know tons of agencies. It's not a good example. But if I met somebody that, at a conference, I said, hey, I want to meet agency owners between X and Y who have this problem. That person then has to go scan their Rolodex, understand what we do well enough, write a message, make the stars align, and it just doesn't happen. So what we want to do is basically get to a situation where you're asking for a specific referral. So what this involves is like, first we go through the beginning of our program, which is like helping our clients build the company list and get really deliberate about who they want to meet through, a somewhat technical process. But it's not that crazy. We're basically figuring out, we're basically doing relationship mapping. So we have our clients first identify the people that they already are connected to, who they would feel comfortable asking for a referral. So this is where like we've seen other like tech products and systems try to like automate this. And it usually kind of breaks down because most of us don't want to just like spam our Rolodex and like hit up anybody for a referral, because it feels awkward, but also like it often just doesn't work because it's like digging for gold all over the place as opposed to like where the gold's actually likely to be. So what this involves is like getting momentum. So you're like, here's everybody that I actually know and would feel comfortable asking. So what we found is that for most of us, this is anywhere from about like 2 to 15%, let's say, of our LinkedIn connections. So that might not sound like a lot, but if you have like, over thousands of connections, this is a great starting place. And then we map from those people who are the ones that actually have a decent number of connections to the prospects that we want to meet. So probably people's eyes will bleed if I get into like the technical setup, but we use Sales Navigator. We have a process in Sales Navigator for doing this. And then you're like, okay, so Chris is connected to 20 people that I would want to meet. I would feel comfortable asking Chris. I'd feel comfortable helping Chris. We should probably get on a call and talk through this. Then we have scripts and a system for making it easy and for, making the intros happen. So what I see this as is this completely automated? No. Is this going to take time and effort? Yes. But this is the new version of dialing for dollars. Like this is a new direct control thing that you can do that's leveraged and uses trust to get referred into the right accounts. So like, I'm doing this and I'm basically getting on like 2 or 3 connector calls a week. Each one of those calls can result in like anywhere between like 1 and 4 referrals into the right accounts. So if you can budget that amount of time to make that happen, this can be completely game changing, because you're going from do you know anybody to here are specific people. Do you know them? And by the way, this is all like no pressure. Like, would you feel comfortable making an intro so we could be a future resource? And here's an email that you can use. So I blabbered a whole lot. Hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if there's any questions.
I want to like add potential color that might help some agencies. One of the exercises that I do, especially with the smaller agencies I'm working with, is we set at the start, all right, what's your actual growth goal? Like, what are we aiming for? And I've created this little Excel thing that basically you put in what your current MRR is and then what your target is, and it's going to tell you how much you need to make like for an additional net new revenue every month, factoring in churn, everything. And for most agencies, like the actual revenue that they need to be gaining every month is in the single digit thousands, right? It's not a lot of money to be able to hit your far out targets.
Yeah.
So when you bring up being able to leverage your referrals, potentially get on a call, have 4 potential referrals made on that, even if you only close one of those in a month, like that could check the box for your net new revenue so that at the end of the year, you're hitting your targets. And so if you can turn this into a system and just like every month, you're at least getting that one referral through this, which feels pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
It's like, why would you not just take this approach on top of doing like your regular marketing and everything, but like create that system to actually leverage referrals in a way that's more deliberate rather than just praying someone else is going to send someone your way.
Yeah, exactly. And this is why it's become our starting point for like 90% of cases. Is it's not a world away from what the agency is already doing. It's just done more proactively, right? And done more deliberately, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. It was a WordStream study from a couple of years ago, but they said 60% of agency prospects are coming in from referrals. And like for me, that's terrifying because it's like more than half your business is something you have no control over. But what if you did actually take control of that, right? Like through the deliberate outreach, completely changes the game.
Yeah, exactly. And it is like all the technology is there to really get that insight over like where you should be focusing your energy. It's just about putting it together the right way. And a lot of these tools, like, you know, as a aside, like LinkedIn, I don't think has done the best job making that easy on people, which ostensibly is what it's for. But there's just too much clutter, in my opinion.
So what's the 80-20 here? If you had to give that one task, one big domino, I guess, that everyone can get outsized results from.
I think people, clarity, trust. I'll give 3.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's way more than that. So when we talk 20%, you're probably still
in there. It's tough to narrow down to one, but people, clarity, trust in that order. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, Dan, I got 2 more questions for you.
Yeah.
First one, what book do you recommend every agency owner should read?
Oh man, that's great. I have a couple ideas. I always go back to The War of Art. I like it a lot. It's all about like living with the resistance. So if you haven't read that, you got it back there.
Yeah, reading it right now.
It's timeless. It's really great. That one's great. I think for sales specifically, I like the Challenger Sale. It's by a few people at CEB or whatever they're called now. I think it's kind of like a spiritual sequel to spin selling. It's just a good consultative sales model. It's more about like this teach, tailor, take control framework, which I think is a really good framework for the post information age, right? Where people like know a lot of stuff. It's more about like perspective and leading people a little bit without being forced, pushy or whatever.
Right.
Those are the first 2. And then shamelessly my own book, Relationship Sales at Scale, which is about our whole manifesto and how to think about the stuff and so on. Yep.
Awesome. All right. And last question, where can people find you?
Yeah, a bunch of different places. I think saleschema.com is our site. If you want to check out the book, it's just saleschema.com/book, and it's right there. It's the best place.
Awesome. All right, Dan, thanks for joining.
Chris, thank you for having me. Great questions. I had a lot of fun.
That's the show, everyone. You can leave a rating and review, or you can do something that benefits you. Click the link in the show notes to subscribe to Agency Forward on Substack. You'll get weekly content, resources, and links from around the internet to help you drive your agency forward.